Do you guys remember the guy Kevin Sorbo? He was in the old Hercules TV show back in the 90s, I think. This is what he looked like back then in Hercules. He's been memed countless times. He famously was such a terrible actor while playing Hercules that so he's doing his dialogue and all that, and then he just stands there and yells, "Disappointed!"
Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
It was ridiculous, dude. Anyway, it was so comical. This show, I used to watch this show back in the day. Here's a picture of Hercules standing next to who I believe is Xena Princess Warrior. I watched Xena Princess Warrior too when I was like fucking 5 with my dad and my brothers. It may be an absolutely awful show. Looking back on it, it definitely sexualized her heavily, and I probably shouldn't have been watching it at the time. But yeah, it is what it is. I watched the show. So, anyways, that's who Hercules is. That's who Kevin Sorbo is. He played Hercules in the 1990s in that show. Later on, the guy went on to play this atheist teacher in the movie God's Not Dead. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but it is some of the cringiest shit ever. They pretty much make fun of atheists in a backhanded way by making all kinds of ridiculous scenarios play out. Things that atheists absolutely would never do in a million years. Like, he was an atheist professor at a college, and he was forcing his students to sign a contract saying that they don't believe in God. Why would anybody do that? Why would any professor on the fucking planet do something that stupid? So this one Christian kid, feeling persecuted, refused to sign this contract, and he was gonna fail the class as a result. As if that would be legal. As if anybody would even want to do that. So anyways, middle, the atheist professor gets hit by a car in the end, and one of the pastors that's been fighting this lawsuit this whole time to force the professor to not fail the student for not signing the contract. When the professor gets hit by a car, that pastor is there, and the atheist professor professes his love for Jesus in his last moments alive and gets saved in the nick of time and goes to heaven instead of hell. It's just so stupid. Oh my God, is it stupid? So anyways, God, I'm just like laughing thinking about how ridiculous it is. So yeah, that was Kevin Sorbo. Kevin Sorbo played the atheist teacher. And as it turns out, the guy is like giga religious. He is ultra religious, omega religious, if you will. Way over the top. And some of his tweets are kind of fucking out there, honestly. Let's switch to the twit and see if we can find any interesting tweets from this guy. All right, so this is Kevin Sorbo on Twitter. Raise your hand if you're more concerned about losing your constitutional rights than you are about COVID. Yeah, so we know what we're getting into right from the start. This is his pinned tweet. 200,000 likes. My God, dude. This guy has 710,000 followers. That's 709,000 more than he deserves. Guys, Joe Rogan is not a scientist. Don't take what he says seriously. Coming up next, the Jonas Brothers and Big Bird reminding you to get your vaccine. Yeah, he's obviously mocking people on the left for, like, saying that Joe Rogan shouldn't be listened to, but we want the Jonas Brothers and Big Bird to be listened to. Spreading the message of a scientist is not the same as contradicting scientists. So the Jonas Brothers and Big Bird are disseminating the message that scientists have vetted and want people to hear. Joe Rogan is directly contradicting scientists without having any formal scientific training, as far as I know. Here's another. 6 feet apart is very important in the airport, but on the plane, you can be shoulder to shoulder and have a dozen or more people closer than 6 feet. Makes perfect sense. He's desperately trying to poke holes in this whole thing. 6 feet apart is the ideal. Some situations don't allow for that. We can't shut down air travel because COVID is going on right now. After the second year, we can't shut down air travel for it. So we do our best. We do what we can, and we understand that there's risk involved, and people who may be vulnerable to it shouldn't go out. We're just doing what we can. And he's desperately trying to poke holes. But, he's advertising his memo? I don't know what memo is. I assume it's like Cameo, kind of. Yep, it looks like it's probably kind of like Cameo. I don't know why he's using memo instead of Cameo. Maybe it's the Jesus version of Cameo. What is your fair share of what someone else has worked for? Well, let's see. Did you go to a college that's funded by the government? Do you drive on the roads that the government built to get to that college? To get to your interviews and your auditions and your work? If you are using things that the government has provided, your fair share is owed to the government. You owe money to the government for using those services. That's how a society works. If you don't want to pay your fair share, that's totally fine. Get the fuck out. Go somewhere else. Don't use the roads that I paid for and that every one of us paid for. Don't use our roads or our colleges or any of that other shit. You have no right to it if you're not paying your fair share. So there's your answer. What is your fair share of what someone else has worked for? Other people worked for the roads. So obviously you are taking it without paying for it, and that upsets me. No more masks, enough already. Yeah, so clearly he's on an anti-science kick. Every person elected to any government office takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. Isn't it amazing how most of them don't uphold it? That's a message most people can agree with, which is why the one before it has 14,000 likes, the one after it has 7,000 likes, and this one has 43,000 likes. Because it's something that you can agree with whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Rudolph changes name to Rolanda, dominates female reindeer games. Anyways, you know what kind of person he is by now. I honestly don't need to torture myself with more of this. But I wanted to kind of look through his AMA on Reddit, his Ask Me Anything. I am the real Hercules and the first captain, after Captain Kirk, on Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. I'm also the really mean professor on God's Not Dead, and Gojan Pai on Mythica. Kevin Sorbo, Ask Me Anything. Never heard of the last one. My latest project's the first episode of a 3-movie series, Mythica, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's new. That's why I haven't heard of it. Starting out a Reddit AMA by pointing out you were an anti-atheist movie? That's a bold move. Yes, exactly. That is a bold move. Let's see how this plays out. And dissing Captain Picard. Not cool, bro. Reddit is brutal sometimes. Needlessly brutal. For no reason. It's really actually wrong how Reddit acts sometimes. Fucking disgusting, honestly. Shows the absolute disgusting nature of humans on occasion. Reddit does. And other social media too, but Reddit does it even worse. Why did you choose to do a movie like God's Not Dead? I just read the Wikipedia summary for this hilariously pandering film, and it doesn't surprise me that he took the role. I guess atheists don't have a moral barometer. There isn't a single non-believer character in this script that puts atheists in a flattering light. All of them actively work to complement the whole "why do you hate me for believing" mantra this movie panders toward. They're just bad caricatures. Exactly. It's a poorly written script. It's a poorly acted and directed movie. There's nothing good or realistic about it in any way. The only thing that God's Not Dead does is play into the Christian persecution complex. That is it. And it's not just traditional Christian persecution complex either. It's far-right evangelical Christian persecution complex. A very specific version of Christian. Kylie's great-grandmother actually watched the movie and didn't like it, though she was deeply, deeply Christian, because she saw how absolutely outrageous it was. Deep Christians can look at this movie and see it for what it is. Fucking nonsense. Here's another analysis on the God's Not Dead movie by this person. People called this months ago. The trailer alone just reeked of naive and misguided, "my prayers went unanswered" theories as to why people stop believing, and don't think anyone is surprised that this is the crutch the entire production came to lean on. This person asks, why did you choose to do a movie like God's Not Dead? Good question. It's an AMA on Reddit, right? In response, somebody said, "Hello, my name is Ramses and I'll be your cricket for the night. I've chosen a selection of music for solo violin, including several pieces that incorporate artistic silence for effect. Sit back, relax, and enjoy." I.e., the dude's not going to answer the question. Because, in my opinion, Kevin Sorbo is a complete embarrassment. Can you explain the whole disappointed thing? Oh, okay. So I'll insert a clip of that.
Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
He actually answers this. He says, ha ha ha, yes, there was an episode of Hercules where I played the Sovereign, and he's sort of an alter ego bilateral universe version of Hercules, and he's the evil Hercules. And many fans of the show thought that when I yelled out disappointed in that episode, that I misread the script. The script didn't say anything. I had a line before that. I said, wait a minute. This isn't my world, because I ended up in Hercules' world. And then I went disappointed the way Kevin Kline does. I ad-libbed on the show a lot. Michael Hurst and I would both throw in lines, words, whatever. And I'm a big fan of A Fish Called Wanda, and Kevin Kline would yell out disappointed when he was disappointed in the movie, so it seemed to make sense at the time, and they kept it in. And it went viral. People thought I said something wrong, and I love it. I'll take the press either way. Okay, fair enough. He did actually say something wrong. It didn't fit in there at all. It was completely ridiculous for him to have said disappointed in that moment. But, if he's owning it, I'm happy with that. That's cool. Did you or your PR people know what Reddit was and how disastrous this could go? That's a really good question, and I have to imagine he didn't ever get an answer to it. It only has 245 upvotes. It doesn't appear to have any responses from Kevin Sorbo, but yeah. Extremely bad idea. It was a very bad idea to do an AMA on Reddit. I didn't even search for, the controversial ones. I totally could have found the controversial ones. It didn't have to be bad. It could have been great press for him, but he bitched out and avoided the tough questions. If I've learned one thing about people, AMAs are a representation of this fact. We might not like nor agree with you, but we want a reason. Had he have manned up and answered the questions, there would have been no problem. The negative comments would have faded, and he could have gotten so much good press. But by not answering, i.e. dodging them, they became louder and louder and louder. So loud, in fact, that all you could see now when looking at this thread are the resounding comments of people pissed, bitching, and mad. Yeah, I guess the AMA didn't go well for him. I'm not really seeing many here, though. I probably have to log in, and I don't feel like doing that, so fuck it. Anyway, that is Kevin Sorbo. I gave you guys a little bit of a primer on who he is. Well, his wife is really no different. Sam Sorbo is her name, and she made a guest appearance on the Flashpoint TV show, Flashpoint Network. It's owned by Kenneth Copeland, I believe, and he has a lot of his televangelist friends come on. So this is Sam Sorbo coming on the Flashpoint Network. Let's give it a listen and see what she has to say.
Education is the 3 F's: faith, family, and freedom. And there's only one way for them to get that, and that's to be with their parents. And so I'll say this: evolution doesn't give a crap about equality.
Okay, hang on. There's only one way for them to get that, and that's to be with their parents? Is she saying that you should always homeschool your kids, everybody, all the time, always? That's kind of a weird take on it, right?
And so I'll say this: evolution doesn't give a crap about equality. Evolution believes in inequality, okay?
Okay, evolution doesn't believe in anything because it's a concept. It's not a physical thing that's alive with a brain, so I'm really not sure what she's trying to get at here. Evolution is just a biological process that takes place over the course of anywhere from seconds to millennia. I'm really not sure what she's saying here with evolution believes in inequality.
If you're teaching your child evolution, you're teaching them slavery and inequality.
Where is this coming from? Please, give me something else. Explain further, I'm begging you.
And now God is calling the remnant to fight. And fight for what? For freedom, because Jesus Christ is the author of our freedom. And evolution has nothing to do with that.
Okay, you're right. Evolution has nothing to do with freedom. I'm so completely and thoroughly confused by what she's trying to get at here. Well, she made an appearance at the Reawaken America conference. I talked about this recently. Greg Locke was there. So was Michael Flynn. A bunch of QAnoners. They had a bunch of QAnoners. Matter of fact, why don't we take a look at their member list? So this is the Reawaken America tour. These are the people that they had there. It's basically far-right QAnon tour. They go around they go all the way around the country, setting up shop and having speakers appear and give speeches there. Mike Lindell, Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell, trying to pick out the most notable ones here. Greg Locke, Andy Wakefield. You guys remember Andy Wakefield? That's the guy that originally published that article on the link between vaccines and autism forever ago, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's who that is. And it got like retracted and he had his medical license stripped because there was no basis for it and everything. I can't believe they had him. That's fascinating. Yeah, they have a whole bunch of real high profile people here. Really high profile people. Roger Stone, and I believe they got Eric Trump and they also got Charlie Kirk. So very, very important people who want to be connected to QAnon to some degree but don't want to outwardly come out as QAnon. They just want to ride off the success of the movement, basically. So Sam Sorbo shows up at Reawaken America to give a talk. This is early December 2021. Let's give it a listen.
But I pulled my son out of school in second grade because they weren't educating him. They were training him a little. It wasn't going well.
Okay, so she pulled her son out of school because they weren't educating him. I simply disagree, madam. I simply disagree. That is the purpose of a school, to educate people. They were, in fact, educating him. Whether you like what they had to say or not, that's another story. I have to imagine he was in a private school, though, right? They wouldn't send their kid to, like, a public school. I mean, they're giga famous and giga rich. I would think that it was a private school. I don't know.
And I started to question, what was the final result going to be? He was learning how to be a bully because, let's face it, in school, they teach you evolution. What is evolution? Survival of the fittest.
No. Okay, survival of the fittest is a single line from a book written like 200 years ago. That is not what evolution is. There is so much to the field of evolution, to the theory, to the fact of evolution. There is so much to it. It has nothing to do with survival of the fittest. And honestly, she's completely misinterpreting what that means in the first fucking place. Oh yeah, and evolution caused him to be a bully. Fascinating. So that's the excuse she used for why her son is a shithead. Okay. Got it.
Of the fittest. And what is that? That's bullying.
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with bullying. A fundamental misunderstanding here. She has no idea what evolution is. She has no idea, obviously.
Christians have no business sending their children to public school.
She is desperately trying to isolate Christians from the rest of society, and that may actually be the more concerning bit here. Well, I guess it's better than trying to go into the school boards and take them over and modify the curriculum like our old friend Rick Scarborough was doing, right?
And our goal is to get 2,000 pastors who will be patriot pastors in Texas once again, who will take over their local school boards, not taken over, but the Christians in offices, teach their people that they should run for those local offices. And if they get excited about that, we'll sweep right through every election coming up. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Christocrat.
That's fucking concerning. At least she's not doing that. At least she's not pushing to replace school boards with, Christian extremists or whatever. At least she's just saying, I'll keep the kid home. Although I would be tempted to say that depriving your... Look, I'm an ex-homeschool student. It was a bad experience. From my background as a homeschool student, I think I would be willing to say it's very easy to turn a homeschooling situation into an abuse situation for the simple fact that a child needs social interaction. It needs social interaction. And if you're not providing ample opportunity for that, it is very easily an abusive situation, really. The Christian thing aside, just homeschooling in and of itself can be a horrifically bad idea. That's just the way I view it, and it's certainly colored by my experiences with it, but I still think that it could easily become a really, really bad thing. And being as extreme as Sam Sorbo is in the first place, I can't imagine that her kid is having an easy time making friends, being from such an extreme family like that. And that makes it all even worse. I have to imagine the kid's having a similar experience to what I had, and that just breaks my fucking heart, man. I'm so sorry. So that was Sam Sorbo at the Reawaken America conference. There's another clip of her going on Flashpoint. Again, this one was on Kenneth Copeland's channel, his network or whatever. This is from early May 2021. Give this a listen.
The greatest trick the devil ever played was to convince the world that he didn't exist, right?
No, I'm contesting that. I'm not even sure what you're talking about, but let me put my Christian hat on for a second here, and let's just play pretend. I would say the greatest trick the devil ever played would be getting Eve to eat the apple? Question mark? But that wasn't even Satan that did that, was it? It was just a plain old regular run-of-the-mill snake that apparently had feet and could talk because God cursed the snake to crawl on its belly for all its days after playing that trick on Eve. So it must have had feet leading up to that, right? And it doesn't say it was Satan. It says it was a snake, so... yeah, I guess scratch that. I don't have an answer to the greatest trick Satan ever played on people. Maybe she's right. Let's keep listening.
The greatest trick that the atheists ever played was...
That's me! Let's see what the greatest trick that I ever played on anybody was. She knows.
Atheists ever played was to convince us that they don't believe in God. They do. They believe in God.
I do. Okay, interesting. Let's hear the reasoning for that, Sam Sorbo.
They believe they are God. And guess what? They're a jealous God. That's why you can't go to church.
Okay, interesting. I love how she's framing being a jealous God as a negative thing when the Bible explicitly says that Yahweh is a jealous God, right? But, just throw that shit out. Doesn't matter. Nobody gives a shit. We're going to pretend that doesn't exist at all. No, I don't believe that I'm God. In any stretch of the imagination, I don't believe that there is a God, and I think what you just said was completely ridiculous. We could safely laugh this off and ignore it if it weren't for the fact that she is going on the Reawaken America tour. That's a little bit concerning to me. So we should definitely keep our eye on Sam Sorbo and see what she does with her newfound career as a Christian extremist.